Until a few decades ago, most historical and archaeological research treated Africa and Africans as passive victims of European exploitation. Most primary sources were written by Europeans, and so they focus on European sailors and seafarers and explorers and their impacts on Africa rather than the other way around. So many of these writers neglect to mention the fact that African seafarers and sailors were vital parts of the Atlantic trade system. My research focuses on the period from 1500 to 1900 in Atlantic West Africa. I'm studying two of these groups of seafarers, the Kru in Sierra Leone and Liberia, and the Luso-Africans in Senegal and the Gambia. I'm using maritime archaeology to investigate the political, economic, and cultural agency of these groups on their own terms. I argue that groups like the Kru and the Luso-Africans relied on long-standing maritime traditions to bridge this gap between communities on the land and the interior and arriving European ships. They often sailed thousands of miles in a time when few people moved past their place of birth. They worked as pilots and navigators for the treacherous coastline on European ships. And yet both groups have only been defined in terms of their relationships with Europeans. My research matters because it shows that European power was contested and compromised in Atlantic West Africa. These histories are emphasizing African resistance and agency in the face of European exploitation. While that exploitation certainly continued through colonialism and the slave trade, African sailors and seafarers were vital parts of Atlantic trade, commerce, and culture. By dissecting the available written sources and using archaeological evidence, we are able to contextualize a fuller picture of how and why groups like the Kru and the Luso-Africans and others played the roles that they did. My research is coming at a pivotal time as a new generation of maritime archaeologists moves further from Eurocentric and colonialist archaeologies in pursuit of a more inclusive, more equitable world for us all. Thank you.